You're listening to Online Pet Health Podcasts with Dr. Megan Kelly. Continuing education for veterinarian rehabilitation therapists. Learn more at onlinepethealth.com.
Hey Vet Rehabbers, it's another one of my Behind the Vet Rehab Practice podcasts this week. For those of you that are new to the Veterinary Rehabilitation Podcast, my Behind the Vet Rehab Practice podcasts are one of my favorite interviews to do. What I love about them is that vet rehabbers get to share with us their wins and their losses. And although it's not great that they made mistakes, when they share them with us, we get to learn from them. So when we find ourselves in those same positions, we have hindsight which we would never have had before. So you get to fast track your success by not repeating the same mistakes that they made. This week I speak to Candice Ramsay from Ramsay Rehab in South Africa. Now, I have been following Candice's journey from when I first interviewed her here about the challenges of running a mobile clinic to then when she actually opened up her vet rehab practice and went to a brick and mortar practice. And if you want to listen to those episodes, it's episode 21 and episode 50. So today is an update of where she is now. And she has 2 branches now. I really love the way that Candice has thought outside the box. Her determination to see through her vision has been really inspiring. Nothing is impossible for Candice, and her positiveness is really contagious. As you know, last month was our birthday month, and we got this great message from Candice. She said, "Happy birthday to the influence that has helped me believe in myself and my business. Happy birthday, Online Pet Health." Candice, thank you so much for that great message. It makes the work we do so much more rewarding when we hear from you guys. You know, we offer support for continuing education, business support through our community, and when we know that it's having such an impact, it really makes it really, really special for us, everything that we do every single day. If you're a vet rehabber and you're not part of the vet rehabber community, please, you can sign up now. So we have both free and paid options depending on your needs. You can go to onlinepethealth.com/free for your very first webinar. In this free platform, you'll also find loads more training and resources to help you become a confident, successful vet rehabber as well as build a profitable vet rehab practice. We also just loaded the first of our series, our small animal series, to our paid platform. This series is on the role of nutrition in the canine rehab patients. So the first recording that is in the library now is general nutrition, and we look forward to on the 8th of March, nutrition for stressed or competitive dogs, 15th of March, nutrition for healing and immunity, and the 22nd of March, feeding the microbiome. And these will be lectured by Lisa Hannaby. Really looking forward to completing that series. So I'm sure you cannot wait to hear what's happening at Ramsay Rehab. I can't either, so over to Candice. Hey Candice, thank you so much for joining me again.
Hi Megan, it's such a pleasure.
So I think this is the third time that you have been on the podcast. I think the first time we chatted, it was about your mobile clinic. So it's actually been quite amazing because we've seen like a whole change in your practice and how it's changed from mobile. And then the second time I chatted to you was maybe like about 2 and a bit years ago. That was episode 50, and that was a Behind the Vet Rehab Practice. Yeah, you basically had decided to change from mobile into having a practice. And you'd found a premises in Johannesburg somewhere, and they had it was a veterinary practice that had a beautiful garden, and you had said to them, how can we be a part of this, and how can I practice from there? And they had sort of looked to see maybe you could have a consult room inside, and I know that was something that you were not interested in because you didn't want all the negative pheromones and everything that is associated with vet practices. And yeah, you basically had got a container, which I think was genius. So like a shipment container, and refurbished it and converted it and put this, and you had your own entrance. And that's where, that's the last thing that had happened when we chatted. And I know that you were looking to get hydrotherapy. So I'm sure there has lots that has changed. So I'm looking forward to the updates as what's happening with Ramsay Rehab.
So Megan, there's been so many changes at Ramsay Rehab that it's actually hard to comprehend. When you asked me to do this podcast, I actually had to go and make a list of all the things that have changed, and I didn't realize how much had actually changed. So at that point, I was desperate for hydrotherapy. I'd been doing manual for a long time, and I started referring my patients away, and I decided it was time to bite the bullet. But I was literally radiating energy of, I don't have an underwater treadmill, so I didn't have one.
Yeah.
So in order to break that cycle, I changed my mind a little bit and compromised on a nice little swimming pool. And when we started doing hydrotherapy, I became so passionate about that I actually forgot about the underwater treadmill being a thing. As I said, like, we built the swimming pool and it was completed on the day of lockdown. So I couldn't even use it for the first few weeks of it being there, but I made sure to visit it and love it anyway. So yeah, we started doing hydrotherapy, and then was very lucky. Everybody knew that I was desperate for an underwater treadmill, and that I'd always talk about like the benefits it would have for my patients, and I never realized how much I actually talked about it until one day a client approached me and said to me that she felt that having an underwater treadmill was definitely the next step for Ramsay Rehab, and she would be willing to help me with it. What's nice to realize is that you don't always have to strap yourself into negotiating with a bank.
And that's amazing. And I think that there are lots of vet rehabbers who have stories like that. I recall another vet rehabber wanting to desperately go and do a course overseas. And I think had been telling one of her clients about it. And her client said, I'll sponsor you. I'll pay for you to go to this course. And yeah, so we have some amazing clients out there, don't we?
Yeah, exactly. And we did it properly. We did it as a proper structured agreement, as if it would be a bank. And it just felt like it was in my reach finally. Once you start being open to accepting that you can have that thing that you want, then it starts to come in abundance. So from there, we then were approached by another veterinary center who also wanted a Ramsay Rehab, and they happened to have an underwater treadmill themselves. So then we landed up moving into our second branch, and now we have 2 underwater treadmills and a swimming pool.
It's amazing. And tell me your clinic now, because when we last chatted, you had one container that was basically like divided into like a consult room and then like a small storeroom and office. And how does it look now there, Ramsay? Are you still on the one, or I'm guessing that you've got a few more?
Yeah, so somewhere in between, we were limited for space, and the team was also growing at that point. Just to give you an idea, we're a team of 8 now. And the team was growing. There was limited space, and space for me is something that's really important. So we purchased another shipping container as well to put the underwater treadmill inside. And so now we've got 2 shipping containers and 3 consult rooms. And then somewhere in between as well, one of our clients is a landscaper, and she landscaped our garden to be another exercise area. So our clients have been very involved in the progression of Ramsay Rehab. Yeah, she's a professional landscaper, and she saw the ideas. And I mean, we were working in mud. We tried to grow grass. It was the bane of my existence. And then she came and she was like, listen, my dog's too full of mud. Like, let's find a solution. So I feel like we're all very like-minded, like let's work together to make it best for the animals. That's actually what happens. So now that also becomes a consult room on a nice South African sunny day. We're happy to sit outside and treat dogs and exercise and have fun outside. So it's quite a nice space. Our Rivonia Ramsay Rehab is like a heaven for dogs, because the areas are all secure. They can go off lead. Some clients, I mean, it's like it was before COVID, was like the dream of like coming with a picnic basket and having your dog's physio, or like some people like will book out for all 4 dogs and then they just have a little party.
Love it. So you mentioned now that your team, you had 8 people. So the last time we chatted, it was you and Stella. And Stella was the person who was coming in and cleaning and sorting and making everything right for you. And I think you had one other therapist, but they'd left then. Like, she was somebody who was working part-time, but it was pretty much just you and Stella. So is Stella still working for you?
Yeah, Stella's our favorite. So Stella now works full-time. and she keeps the girls in check. She makes sure that we don't flood the underwater treadmill. Yeah, she's a super valuable person in our team, and I'm really happy to have her because I think she's stuck by me for so long. And she actually alternates between both as well. So we've got a really nice rotation on the whole group. But we're very sad when Stella goes on leave.
Yeah, always makes it difficult. So when you have somebody like that, then when they leave, then you really, really appreciate them, don't you?
Yeah, and her job now extends into even doing filing and stuff like that. So she's not just a regular, like cleaning staff. She will answer the phone if it's ringing. She will do the paperwork, like she'll do the filing. She makes sure that the clients are always greeted when they walk in, because often we're busy with other stuff, and then Stella's like, sorry girls, there's somebody here, then at least we know. So she's like an all-rounder.
Yeah. And then tell us about the rest of the team now. So that's obviously you and Stella. So who are the other 6 people?
So we have a manager now. Her name is Veronica, and she is she was actually a client that decided in lockdown that she would much rather work with animals and change her whole life. Well, she was working with animals before, but she was doing a behavior, and I always saw a valuable her skills as a valuable asset to Ramsay Rehab. So like I always used to take time to chat to her, because I think behavior does come into physiotherapy, and managing pain and behavior, it ties in. So I always used to speak to her, but during lockdown she had a gap, and I'm an opportunist, so I took the opportunity and I said, why don't you, like we're working in level 4, so come. And then she just became more and more involved, and now she's the manager of both practices. And I don't think there's anything she can't do in terms of engaging with clients, organizing our schedules, making sure everybody's happy. Like it's definitely another, you don't only have to be a veterinary physiotherapist to work at a veterinary physiotherapy center, which is the idea. And then we've got 2 Equilibrium qualified therapists that are full-time, and we kind of take them as lead therapists. So we alternate with them, and then they both work alongside 2 veterinary nurses. Again, I've learned that it doesn't just take a veterinary physiotherapist to make a fully functioning center. You can, I think, as long as the evaluations and treatments are prescribed by a fully qualified veterinary physiotherapist, there's no reasons why a veterinary nurse can't execute certain physiotherapy techniques, like a prescribed underwater treadmill program can be executed by a veterinary nurse, for example. And then it's like a guided treatment, so that we can cater for the workload that we get. The ideal is that you have like one therapist on one patient, and well, the perceived ideal is that one therapist sees one patient, and that patient belongs to that therapist. But it actually doesn't work in my experience, because everybody has a different skill set. And sometimes when you have one patient that sees multiple people at a center, you actually get a better outcome. And we've tested this theory by default, just because December was like so busy, that we had one dog that didn't see the same therapist at every appointment. She saw a different therapist every time. Everybody added their 2 cents to the case, and that dog made like the most remarkable recovery. So that's just one of many. But a veterinary nurse will comment on a dog's habitus, whereas a veterinary physiotherapist will comment on the integrity of the dog's gait. So it's a really nice combined approach. And if you can structure it that you work as a team, you have team meetings, you discuss cases, you add things, you change up exercises, it can work, and it can work better, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love it. We all for the vet rehab team. I think the one thing that, if I think back to my practice, is the clients. And they're the ones that probably would give pushback, because especially if you've started off by just being you, for example, and then they're used to seeing you, there was probably a transition where you had to get them used to other people. And, if I think back to my days in my practice, whenever I got somebody else in, I would be fully booked and that person wouldn't. And they would just wait until they could get another appointment with me. And I never really had another full-time therapist. So unfortunately, when I had my practice, we didn't have all those equilibrium people and we didn't have lots of CCRP graduates, but it was always a problem. They always wanted to see me. So how did you handle that? How did you handle that transition in your growth from just having you and everyone being used to you seeing their patients and then getting other therapists in?
So it's probably a very difficult system to implement. I think it's probably one of the most difficult things I've had to do, but it's definitely a confidence in your team. So, when I chose the team, and subsequent to that, when Veronica and I choose the team, more recently we do it together, we make sure that personalities and skill levels are the same, and that we build each other up. I find that my clients actually don't mind who they see. They just want to make sure that their dog is comfortable with whoever they see. They want to make sure that they get a good outcome and that it's not a stressful process. So I think if you as the therapist and the team are okay with it, the client will be okay with it. If you feel secure, the client will feel secure. So yeah. It's definitely even just a feeling, and then also to be upfront about it. So it's just not possible when you are rotating between two centers. On the professional aspect, you also want the therapists to have the best exposure to different environments. So, it keeps us stimulated to work at different practices. So to be at one practice and seeing the same patients all the time, it can become monotonous. And so the way we communicate with our clients is on the initial assessment, we say, this is actually how we're going to work your program. And we have these therapists here for the next 2 weeks, and they will be notified and aware, and we'll discuss the cases. So next week you may see either two of these, whoever's working there at that time. And then the clients get to know everybody, and then they're happy because with one therapist they'll discuss one thing. Like, for example, yesterday a client came and saw one of the therapists she hadn't seen before, and she got suggested 2 new exercises that she'd never been told about before. And the client was like, oh, wow, that's so nice. Now we changed things up. And actually it was refreshing for her. So I think it's all in the confidence of building each other up in the team, supporting each other, knowing what each other's strengths are as well. I mean, if you want a killer taping, then you go to one specific therapist, I mean, I'm not that great at taping just because I haven't been as exposed to it as one of the equine lib girls. So if I want a dog to be taped, even in my consult, I will ask that therapist if they're available to come and have a look and suggest a taping technique for me for this patient. And then the client sees that interaction and they are comforted by it. It's like having a team of doctors instead of just one.
Yeah, I mean, it's perfect. And like you say, it's the best outcome for the patient. So I love that, and I can see it. If you feel confident in everyone else in your team, then the client can only feel the same way. So if you're not confident, that'll shine through in your voice and your actions. So the client then would obviously be a little bit reserved. Let's chat quickly about your pool. So, I mean, how big is the pool? So how many square meters by square meters? And, was there a big decision as to how big to make it? Were you sort of forced to make it the size because of the area that you had? I mean, you must have had loads of questions. So whenever somebody makes a pool, it's always like, should it be on top? Should it be inside? Should you have a ramp? Should you have a step? How deep should it be? Run through all of that, because I'm sure that you went through all of that when deciding to build it.
Yeah, I think building the pool was quite stressful for me. Obviously, I wanted like the most perfect, ideal, like standard hydrotherapy type pool. It didn't work in the space that I had. I had very limited space. You must remember, I converted a garden into a rehab center. So it wasn't, obviously I would have preferred like a nice big building with like the state of the art, everything, but I also didn't have the budget. So we built, it's a 3 meter by 3 meter pool. It's a square pool and it's got a ramp. The ramp it actually turned out to be perfect. The dogs love the ramp as opposed to steps, but I was nervous that it wouldn't be long enough to create a ramp. But we did anyway, and like the dogs love it. They get into it on their own. They run from the car into the pool. I am slightly disappointed in that we can't do lengths, like long lengths, especially for our sports and working dogs. But the idea was always to get the underwater treadmill, which personally I prefer. So we often do the bigger dogs in the underwater treadmill. We've also got the extra length underwater treadmill. So I thought at that time even, I thought I'll make a smaller pool and make sure that I get the bigger treadmill so that we can cater for the giant breeds and things like that. Because the giant breeds in my swimming pool just tuck their feet, touch the ground and don't swim. They swim with their front legs and they stand with their bottom leg, with their back legs. So like those dogs we put in the underwater treadmill. But for spinal patients and small dogs, our swimming pool is amazing.
And looking at the space that you had, obviously you're restricted. With the space that you have, is there anything that you would have done different? So is there anything that you regret about the pool?
I actually might extend it one day, make it longer and take it into the car park and then like redesign the parking space, because the parking space is also right there. And I just think the reason we put the parking space right there was so that if we had paralyzed dogs, they didn't have a long way to walk to the center. But we might come up with a better plan and actually lengthen the pool, make it much longer. But also now that we've got the underwater treadmill, the pool doesn't seem to be as important. We use it a lot, but now we can do multiple therapies. We can do underwater treadmill and swimming. So yeah, I don't know if I will change it, but I would have loved it to be longer.
Yeah.
But I sound spoiled now. I was just grateful to have the pool when I got it.
It's okay. It's okay to, it's lessons learned, right? So if there's something that you've done and it's great to share, because the vet rehabbers that are listening, it might make them, if they're in this position now of building a pool, they might think, well, maybe I should make it longer. If Candice is thinking like that was maybe a mistake that I made. So you're helping and by sharing. So don't worry. You don't sound like you're spoiled.
I also made a compromise. I could have made a bigger pool, but then I wouldn't have been able to afford the heat pump and the solar panels, and also to afford the solar panel or the heat pump long term. I think I'd rather have an ideal water temperature than a long cold pool.
For sure. And especially where you are, because in winter it gets cold. It gets really cold where you are. So you do need a little bit of heat.
I did make that compromise. I made that compromise for keeping the water warm and managing it easier. It takes no time at all to heat up our pool, and it doesn't cost as much as a bigger pool.
So how has life changed for Candice? So before, obviously when we last chatted to you, you were working flat out. You had lots of clients. How are your hours changed now that the team has grown?
So one of the reasons I opted to do the team approach is because my personal life is really important to me. It's important to everyone, but I have the tendency to overwork. And then I only realize I've overworked once I have burnout. And I think that just comes with our profession in terms of we want to help everybody. So that's been the most difficult transition for me. And I attribute it to my team that they remind me all the time of what I need personally. I work less hours. I still work 5 days a week, but I work a little bit less. When I say I work less, it means I'm consulting with my patients less. The time that I am not consulting, I am working on, I completed our operations manual for this month. and then probably next month there'll be changes. But
Yeah.
I've been working on that for a long time, and I've actually had a lot of help from other rehabbers. Lauren Barham has really helped me a lot with my standard operating procedures as well. And so I completed that. So I work on things like that, ideas of progressing the clinic and even more the treatments. I like to write up some case studies in case there's an opportunity to give a lecture, stuff like that. Personally, I actually got married last year, which was super exciting. And then that's my excuse. I have a husband to go home to, so I have to make sure that I take some time off. So I don't work Saturdays anymore. That is, I have an actual weekend. And I think it's the first time in my career that I've actually had a weekend, because every weekend, because I was a vet nurse before, and you don't get weekends as nurses either. I think it's really important. And actually, I feel like Ramsay Rehab is doing better because of it, which is strange. You're seeing less patients, but you're giving them more in the time that you're available, and then you literally disconnect from work and enjoy your actual life. And that is new to me. That's really new to me.
That's awesome. So where to now? So, I mean, we've had this will be the third podcast. I'm guessing that in 1 or 2 years, we're going to book another one for updates. So what are the goals for the next 2 to 3 years for Ramsay Rehab?
So I think for now, I would like to stay where I am a little bit, in terms of, like, I'm not looking to open another branch or anything right now. I did say that before, so I'm a bit nervous to say that. But I would really like to focus on having students at our center. I think that's something that's in the pipeline that's going to come about. Having students and training. I think just to focus on the team even more, like making sure that we transition team members in a manner that makes them want to work more productively, happily, like just making sure that we keep an eye on how people within the team are coping and look after them, so that we can continue to provide the service that we do right now. So, there's always the scary thing of getting bigger, and now you don't provide the same service you used to, but actually can provide a better service. So I think it's like, I would like to just stay where I am for now for a little bit.
I think that's a good idea. I mean, sometimes what can happen is if you just grow too big too quickly, you don't have the systems in place to be able to handle it. And like you say, team members can get overwhelmed. And it's really great, Candice, that you look out for your team members. It's really important, because without them, there is no Ramsay Rehab. And so they need to be in a good space. They need to be able to be in a space where they have the energy to be able to treat the most effectively that they can. And we all know, like all of us have been in the position where we're just so swamped, just so hectic, you can't even think. And when you're in that space, you definitely aren't treating to your best ability. So it's awesome that you look after them.
I find that we go there so easily, and then you only realize afterwards. So I think that's important,
Yeah, I think it's in our nature. But I think the good thing is we realize. Right, we realize
finally.
Yeah, so like if you're able to realize, I'm going there, this is not good, and have some checks for yourself, like when I feel like this, I mean, for me it was always when I lost empathy. So like when somebody would tell me about their dog, and I, if a pet owner always tells me that their dog is in pain, or their dog is suffering or struggling, I have this dreadful feeling. I'm like, I must sort that out. I don't want that dog to feel that way. So for me, whenever they said that, and I didn't get that dreadful, like pulling feeling in my chest about it, like I need to sort that out, I would just be thinking, okay, like I didn't have that feeling. For me, that was the first sign that I am getting to that stage where I can't, it's too much, that compassion fatigue. So I think, it's really important that all of us know what is our sign, what is the first thing when we're going that way, so we don't spiral into that bad place.
When I learned that was actually very interesting. I was planning my wedding last year. My wedding was such a high priority for me personally that wedding dress fittings, meeting for the cake, all that kind of stuff was stuff that I had to do during the week because all these kind of suppliers don't work on weekends. And I was literally only off on a Sunday, which is so unhealthy thinking about it now. But I started to have to take like an afternoon off here, an hour there, this and that. And then I was worried that doing the wedding planning would take me away from Ramsay Rehab and the girls and what they need, and I have to be there, and what if they need me? And then I had to do the wedding stuff, so I did it. And then I was like, hang on, like everybody's fine.
They don't need me.
I was like, what am I doing? And then I was like, so why am I not like prioritizing other stuff that's important to me as well, that actually makes me a better therapist,
Well, I think it's a sign of a really great team. So when you go away and I've had a very similar thing recently. So that I have a little 6-month-old baby now. And I remember, going on maternity leave because, when I had my practice, I never really had a proper maternity leave. And I was so worried about taking maternity leave. And my team just did everything. And I mean, I've spoken to so many people and they've just said, you wouldn't even have known that you weren't there. And my team actually gave me feedback. They actually said, yeah, it was you. And my team actually gave me feedback and said, it's actually better when you're not here. How bad is that? I think it's because I've always got ideas and they just got on with it. Yeah, it's testament to you for building such a great team and being such a good leader. So well done on that.
Thank you, Megan. Thanks.
Awesome, Candice. Well, it's been wonderful chatting to you. Good luck with everything. So I'm looking forward to our next updates in a year or two, just to see where things are at. And just keep up with the great work. You're doing a wonderful job.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you so much.
Cheers, Candice.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the subscribe button so you get notified every time I load a new podcast. And please, if you get a moment, head over to Stitcher or iTunes and leave me a review. It's a really lonely job being a podcaster, and so the only time I get to hear from you or know that you're out there is when I get a review. And know that I read every single one of your reviews. So to those of you that have left reviews, I want to say a very, very big thank you. Every time we get a review, it really helps to get the Veterinary Rehabilitation Podcast out there to all the vet rehabbers all over the world. All right, vet rehabbers, so if you are looking for more continuing education in the field of veterinary rehabilitation, head over to onlinepethealth.com. Go be awesome, guys.